Hello, welcome back. It's so good to see you. How are you doing? Have you been taking your medicine? So, because it's October, it's the spooky month or whatever, and so I'm gonna do something really, really scary and talk about my personal life. It's really scary for me. I'm shaking in my custom baby seal leather boots right now. But I wanted to talk about my testimony and my healing because it's important for me that you know that. This isn't like a Jesus-centered channel, but I am a Jesus-centered person, and I'm not gonna like water it down to be convenient for any one person. And so if you don't want to watch this, then watch something else. That's fine with me. But also, if you have endometriosis or just the worst periods ever in your life, maybe do watch it because that would be great. I'm eating, this probably looks on camera so nasty because it kind of looks a little bit nasty in real life. It's tortellini with meat, like beef and pepperoni and cottage cheese and spaghetti sauce, and I call it pizza pasta. And it tastes yummy. When I was about 16, I started having really bad periods. They were never pleasant for me. I started when I was like 10 or something, I don't know. And they were never like so bad that I had to stay home from school or anything. But when I turned 16, that's how it was. I would call my mom, who worked like half an hour away, so kudos to her for just driving to school once a month to pick me up. And I'd say, Mom, I feel so sick, please take me home. And it was because I started having nausea symptoms. And at that point I hadn't started throwing up or having like other sick problems, but I would drive home with her and she'd stop at the gas station and give me a Sprite. And so to this day, when I get my period, I want a Sprite. And it just continued to develop, and my mom took me to a doctor around the time I was 17. She was like, this seems not good. I started hurting more. I started having really bad ovulation cramps as well, along with the nausea. And I would get leg cramps, which didn't seem related until I realized that it was. And we went to the doctor, and this was the first of many doctors that told me I was absolutely fine. We got there, he did a few tests, and then said we're gonna do an ultrasound. They did an ultrasound, and he was like, actually, you're cool, and everything's fine and normal. And to be fair, at that point, it was not nearly as bad as it got in the future, but when you're 16 and you're just starting to realize and get all of these problems, it's kind of a little bit scary. So, I don't even know why I'm holding this, I'm not eating it. So, because I was told that everything was normal, I started pretending that everything was normal as best as I could. I stopped staying home from school and I just took way too many ibuprofen. Like, this is a fun fact. I don't know if you know this, but the recommended dosage for ibuprofen is 1 every 6 hours. But if the pain persists, you can take 2. I was taking 4 or 5, depending on the day, every 4 hours, staggered with Tylenol, also every 4 hours. And then throw in a few Midol here and there. And I went to another doctor several years later, same thing. Symptoms had already started developing worse. I was having issues with this whole video is going to be TMI, and I'm just going to accept it and move on from it, and you can too, okay? But I started having like the most painful cramps I've ever had in my life when I was pooping or when I was peeing. Like, that's not normal. And like when I was on my period, that's how it was. And again, leg cramps all the way down. My kidneys just killed me. I couldn't stand up straight. There was multiple times where I had to pull over when I was driving because my cramps were so bad. And the doctors were still like, you're fine, you're good. When I was about 20, I was put on birth control to try to help it. And to be quite honest, the doctor I was talking to, which was a woman, and if you lived in this area, I would never recommend you to her once in my life. She was the worst doctor I've ever seen. So I came to her and I was like, I have all of these issues and it is awful and I can't really move for a week or two at a time. Like 2 weeks out of the month, I have a week on, a week off, a week on, a week off. I can't move. And she was like, oh, that really sucks, but you're fine, and so we're going to do birth control. And I was like, I'd actually really prefer to talk to my husband about that because, I mean, I was just married and I didn't really want to do it, and so I was just using the husband card. And she was like, oh, that's crazy because I've already sent it to the pharmacy, so go pick it up. And I was like, okay, and I did. And I was on birth control for like a year and a half, and it made a lot of the symptoms worse, including my anxiety and my depression, which I didn't realize was related to my hormones until everything was fine. Like right now, I would have the biggest depressive episodes that would span months at a time. The birth control just made it so much worse. And so when I finally quit birth control, I went to an OB and was talking to her and was like, this is the issue that I'm having. This is why I was on birth control in the first place, and it's not working. It's making me feel way worse. And that's when I started developing like actually throwing up and like diarrhea problems, okay? Again, I told you TMI, just live with it. And the doctor was like, you know what? This sounds like endometriosis, but we can't like officially diagnose you without cutting you open, and we're not gonna cut you open because you're too young. But when you have fertility issues, let us know. And I was like, cool, so I just have to live with it? And she's like, yeah, just live with it. I started working as a cashier when I was about 20, and that job is standing all day. And when I was on my period, I could not stand all day. And it was around that time when I was 20 that I started having, I almost want to call it anemia issues, because I would have like, and I didn't realize that it was related. It's so crazy because looking back, I'm like, oh, it was all related. It was like my head was in a fishbowl full of water and I was just looking at the whole world. Like everything made me dizzy and nauseous, and I couldn't hardly stand without getting dizzy. And so that, coupled with everything else we've already talked about, I went home from work a lot when I was in my early 20s. And I was like, this is just the exact same thing that happened when I was in high school, and I have to get over it because everything is normal. Endometriosis runs in my family. So like, I don't know if it's one of those things that runs in your family, but like 4 out of the probably 6 women that are in my mother's side that are still alive had or have had endometriosis. Because I was missing so many days of work, I was like, you are actually pathetic, woman. Just pull yourself together. And I mean, there was nothing much else I could do but either drug myself or stay home. And because having the little extra money when you're first married is nice, I drugged myself a lot. And like Midol and Excedrin and ibuprofen and everything like that. And I was getting, at this point also, it's so hard to remember all of the symptoms because coming off of it just now, it's like, when did that start? But I think it was around that time I also started getting just weeks worth of migraines at a time. And when you're in public with a migraine and you're just trying to keep your eyes open so nobody thinks you're crazy for just keeping, you know, migraines in a warehouse style workplace are not fun because they have those huge overhead fluorescent lights that are so bright and you just want to die the whole time. And at that point, I genuinely did, because I was depressed and because I felt so useless for being in pain all the time, and because I had never been really validated for the amount of pain that I was in. Like, in my mind, because so many women are like mistreated medically, I was like, this is fine and normal, and I'm a big baby, which is not true. All 3 of those things. Oh, the dryer finally turned off. Give me a second. I'm sure that you heard the dryer droning on in the background. for all of that, but I'm not gonna refilm it because I've already forgotten half of what I said, and I feel like it's more genuine when it's just coming straight from the noggin. Also, I'm wearing, like, I've got my leggings and my fuzzy socks and a sweatshirt on because it's that weird season here in Nebraska where it's cold right now, but in a week or two, it's gonna be so hot. It's like the Nebraskan gamble. Are you gonna turn your heat on for 2 weeks like a loser? Or are you gonna suffer for a little while? And my husband, I guess, loves to gamble because he's like, we're not turning on the heat. And I said, we're turning it on to 68. And so that's how our house is right now. And I know some people enjoy 68, but I am a weakling who likes 72. Yeah, so, this is probably going to be so scattered, and I'm so sorry. I'll try to figure it out when I edit this. It's probably going to be still pretty scattered. So, about 21 was when the doctor told me, you probably have endometriosis, and I was like, that sounds like a good label to apply to the situation I'm facing. But to any haters that want to say that Jesus didn't heal my body, even if it wasn't endometriosis, there was something massively hormonally wrong with me, okay? It is not normal to have so much pain doing normal things and vomiting and diarrhea and migraines that last weeks and headaches. Also, there's a difference between a migraine and a headache, and leg cramps and what is that, the word that I just used? Anemia and dizziness and all of it. It's not normal. It may be common, but it is not normal, okay? So, where was I going with that? It was right before I turned 23 that we got pregnant with our first child. I say first child like there's another child on the way. There is not. But I had the best time as a pregnant lady. Honestly, towards the end there, before my period started like being miraculously healed by the Lord, I told my husband, you need to get me pregnant because I'm suffering so badly right now, which is just a weird thing to say to a person. Anyway, I had the best pregnancy ever. 0 morning sickness. Well, that's not true. I had like 2 weeks of morning sickness. And you want to know what cured it? Flamin' hot Cheetos. And you want to know what my daughter likes to eat now? Flamin' hot Cheetos. I cannot make that up. I tried so hard to keep her from eating them because I was like, CPS will knock on my door if you eat this. And then she stole one from my plate and loved it so much. And I was like, you are insane. After I gave birth, there were several months that I didn't have a period. That's completely normal. And then when it started coming back, I was like, okay, so this isn't so bad. Like, this is like probably what my periods were like when I was 16, when I thought I was dying. But I was like, this isn't so bad. And then month by month, it just progressed so quickly. Like if you were to have a graph, it was like, whoom, and all of a sudden it was like 0 to 60 and I was dying again. So up until, I think by the time that this gets posted, it's going to be like 2 months ago that I had the last period that I was dying. So towards the end there, I was bedridden for like 3 weeks at a time because it went straight from ovulation pain to PMS pain to period pain. And then I had like a week where I was in mild pain. It was just around the clock, not feeling good. Couldn't hardly eat anything because everything I ate, I threw up or, other ways got rid of. And I couldn't hardly move. When my daughter was awake, I was on the couch like this. Let's read a book. Play with your toys. Or when she was asleep, I was laying in bed on my heating pad because I could not move. And she is a mover, so that was very hard for both of us. And, like I said, just taking too much medication, like my poor liver, and suffering. And my depression was so bad that I had genuinely, at that point, several months been suicidal. And that's how I was when I was a teenager, too. There were a lot of the time I was suicidal. And I genuinely think that was because of all of the hormones. And I'm told myself I'm getting to the point that made me cry when I did a testimony for my church. And I'm trying so hard not to cry because this is like, you're a bunch of strangers and you don't get to see me cry, okay? But it was about 2 months ago that I was having so much pain that I talked with my pastor and my bishop. There was like a call to prayer at church and I was too chicken to go up. I was scared. Why, I don't know. I know all of those people very well, but I didn't go up. And that afternoon we were talking with my pastor and my bishop, and I said, here is the deal. I feel awful all of the time, and I need to be prayed for. I was gonna go up here, but I was too scared. And they said, oh, let's just pray right now. And I was like, I really like that, actually. So they were praying for me. They anointed me with oil. I'm Pentecostal, so that's like a normal thing. I don't know if that's a normal thing for all religions, but it is for mine. While they were praying, I felt something move in my stomach. And if you've ever been pregnant, it feels like the way that when the baby rolls over, that's what it felt like in my stomach. And I was like, that's interesting. But again, like, I was too scared to say anything about it, because what if it was just in my brain and nothing was actually happening, you know? Like, I am a Thomas. Wait, no, is that, yeah, I am a Thomas, unfortunately, and I'm like, I need to see it to believe it. And so God was like, oh, you're gonna see it, baby girl, and you're gonna love it. And so about 2 weeks later, I started my period. And we were at a friend's house. And this is like so weird, because if they ever see this, they're going to know exactly who they are. But I was at a friend's house and we were playing Axis and Allies. And I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. And and I was like, how is this happening right now? Like, I don't hurt, and I haven't hurt for like 2 weeks. What's going on? Like, and it's so funny because I didn't even realize until that point that I hadn't hurt for 2 weeks. And it's so ridiculous. And I was there having my period and having no pain. And that was the first time in my entire life that had ever happened to me. And I was just dumbstruck. So I didn't say anything to anyone, and I didn't do anything about it until we got home. And I went to bed that night and I slept fine. Like, I told you this is going to be so like crazy, but when I was on my periods, I couldn't sleep at night because my cramps were so bad. But I slept fine, and I didn't need to even use my heating pad once. Like, I felt no pain. The amount of pain that I have now, because God healed my body and my hormones are normal, and any endometriosis that may or may have not been there, I'm saying was there, because I'm pretty sure it was endometriosis, but I was never cut open to be officially diagnosed, and so I'm saying may or may not have, so that way the haters don't come for me. But what was I saying? I need to keep my brain straight. I haven't had any caffeine today, so my brain is like, oh, that's right. So now that my body is normal, the pain that I experience when I am on my period, the amount of pain I feel is the way if someone were to just press on your stomach like this. Not even hard. Just like, oh, look at that. That's about the amount of pain I have. I get a little bit of back pain, but it's like, I just need to pop my back and then it's fine. And when I ovulate, it's that same thing, a little bit of pressure, and that's it. But I haven't been depressed for 2 months, which is honestly a record for me, okay? Not to toot my own horn or make you feel better for me, but I can't remember going 2 weeks without being at least a little bit depressed in my whole life. I am so mentally stable right now. Like, it's so weird to look back and be like, you were a little bit crazy because of your hormones, girl. I'm so sorry. And you know what? It's fine now. Everything's fine. We can move on from that. And if anyone ever does say that I was crazy, I'll beat them up. It's just amazing being literally healed from endometriosis and experiencing what normal is supposed to be. And so my recommendation for any women that have made it this far that are experiencing not what normal is, get mad at your doctor, really, really mad, or get right with God and start praying about it, because he wants you to not die. Like, he doesn't want you to want to die, and he doesn't want you to be in pain. So like, talk to God about it. I was trying to be a little bit funny here, and so I feel like I'm doing a whip turn to be like, you need to seek your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But you do, okay? In general, you do. And if you are in so much pain that you want to die, you do. That's all I have to say. I think that's going to be at the end of this video. I'm going to eat my pasta finally, and maybe sneeze? Nope, no sneeze. And I will see you next week, and have a good day, and drink lots of water, and wear your seatbelt, and have fun, and be safe, and don't forget to wear deodorant. Like and subscribe if you really feel like it, but you're legally obligated to.